All right, guys. Most of the time, y'all are used to me standing up. We're recording at 7 p.m. tonight, so I'm sitting down and being lazy. But welcome, iCoach VIP members. This time, I have a very special guest. She's somebody that I kind of met through Toni, who I interviewed on here as well, and she just so happens to have the same exact name. So, gosh, I'm going to probably butcher this, but Toni Marinucci, right?
Yeah.
Welcome to the iCoach VIP members. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. And you didn't butcher it. You did just fine.
Yes, I practice.
Italian. You probably had a lot of Italians on here. So.
I know. After I met Toni, it's like popping up, right?
We're all related.
That's awesome. So tell me a little bit more about yourself. I don't want to spill the beans on anything you have in the works. I know you have some very exciting things coming up. But talk to me a little bit, like I know you're a registered dietitian. Talk to me a little bit like what you're currently doing now, and then kind of how you got into the nutrition and fitness space.
Absolutely. I am a registered dietitian. I have an online nutrition counseling business that I started at the beginning of this year. I still work full-time as a retail dietitian. It's a really cool job. I've pretty much worked in like every area where you could find a registered dietitian: clinical, eating disorder centers, nursing homes, daycare centers. I really have saturated myself in the market because I absolutely love nutrition. However, I wanted to create my own business so that I can share my voice and my story and why I got into nutrition and help other people kind of have the same or similar success that I had in my health and happiness, which is, I started very insecure, overweight as a child. There was a lot of chaos in my family. I was always taking care of other people. I never really focused on myself. And I always struggled with my weight, and I was struggle with insecurity, but I really honestly didn't feel like there was even room for me to open up about it, because my sister struggled a lot with anxiety and depression, and my house was just always very chaotic, and I always felt like I kind of had to be perfect because my sister, to be honest, was really always getting into trouble. From the youngest age, I remember I was 7 years old and I got called to the principal's office because she ran away from school, and she was in kindergarten at the time. And so that was only the beginning. So as you can imagine, as you get older, the problems get bigger, and the calls were, she got into a car accident with your car. Like the calls were, she's overdrank, and it got really bad as you get older, as you can imagine. And so that's kind of all I knew, was helping others and not really feeling like my problems kind of had a space. And it sounds sad, however, it's actually really helped me to who I am today, because it forced me to do things like journaling. It forced me to reflect. It forced me to kind of figure it out on my own and recognize that, okay, this weight to me isn't helping me. If anything, it's only hurting me, and I can control. There's certain things in my life that I can control. So I started to just eating healthier because I recognized it made me feel better. Started exercising more regularly, getting more consistent with that, and just noticing not only was I losing weight, but I was just feeling more confident, more comfortable in my skin, and really getting to know who I was as a person. And it led me into the path of becoming a registered dietitian. And the more I've just saturated myself with the market, and the more I've just seen the transformations of my personal clients and help them to achieve the same health, happiness, and success, it's like all I want to do. And that's why I love doing what I do. It's because I'm taking people from a place of hurt, not really truly being their true self, to a place of total confidence and control, and recognizing that they can make this life whatever they want to make of it.
Wow. I love that. That's amazing. I feel like as I've told, I don't know how much you know about my story, but like I was, a terrible kid when I was young, and like went through all of those growing pains, I guess you can call them too. But it's really cool to just see like, people go through a transformation themselves, right? Like for me, like I was never like overweight or anything like that. Like I never went through a transformation myself, but like I saw like my mom, and my mom was always that person like that I couldn't help. right? And like, it just broke my heart. Like, she was the one that like, she would like starve herself and eat like, you know, like rice cakes and like cottage cheese all day. And then like at night you would catch her at like 3 a.m, like crushing like a cake, right? Like, and it was just something like, I saw her yo-yo diet her whole entire life, weight loss pills, you know, everything, right? And I don't know. I think that that was a big component of me like getting into the space and like wanting to help others. And it's funny that like the majority of the clients that we work with, I would say are actually females. And there's one lady I work with in particular that like I tell her all the time, I'm like, you literally remind me of like my mom. Like I feel like I'm coaching my mom. And so it's just, I don't know, it's just really cool. So I love your story. That's awesome.
And the stories never change, the faces that do. Like very often we have very similar stories, never the same. We didn't go through everything exactly the same, but there's a lot of people that can relate in some way. And I never talked about this. Honestly, nobody knows. And because I almost felt like it wasn't my story to tell because it was my sister who struggled, but she affected me just like, you know, when you were going through your stages of where you were being a little rebellious and not into the greatest things, people around you were affected by that. And so I started to recognize that the more I keep things in and I don't open up, I'm not helping anyone. I'm not serving anyone. And there's so many people out there that can relate to my story. There's so many people out there that could relate to what your mom did or with your client. It's all very similar. We just have to be open to seeing it and be there to help and support each other and not keep it in. Because the more we keep it in, that's what I learned my lesson is eventually, like, it just got worse. I had to, at some point, really help myself get out. Otherwise, who knows what have happened with me. I was not happy at all. No one knew I wasn't happy, but I was not happy. So that wouldn't have ended well if I didn't actually start to pay attention and take care of myself.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, I mean, take me back a little bit, like so how long ago was it that like, or maybe let's ask the question, like, how long would you say that you've been like happy like this? Like, I mean, you have like to hear the stories, right? And then to see the self-confidence that you have and the smile on your face and like, you know, you have like this little bright twinkle in your eye. It's like, I mean, how long and like, how did that like, how long has it been? And then like, let's dig into like that transition, because I think that's, a lot of people listening, like they really, really need to go through a transition like that in their life.
Yeah, and I think that you made a really good point. It's about the transition. It's a work in progress at all times. I'm not always happy like this, and there's always like, but for the most part, I am genuinely happy. Like my happiness isn't dependent on anybody else, but that took a lot of time to learn and grow. And I would say, and at this point in my life, I think I finally got it because I've finally, like, I think everyone kind of struggles with consistency and really committing. But if you make that commitment to yourself, that it's like the little things like getting up every morning and doing your workout because you know it makes you feel good. It's no longer a non-negotiable. Like those things, being able to do that, and now being able to, you know, stick to what, if you're either on a meal plan or just healthier eating or having a healthier relationship with food, whatever it is, and you're making a choice to eat better because you know that it makes you feel good and you do that, that's how that self-confidence grows. So it's been a journey for me. It's been ever since I made the decision. I was 14 when I made the decision to start eating healthier. And it obviously didn't start out great. You know, I think anytime someone makes a change, it starts from negative and you do all the wrong things. I was like my ideal client. I overate and then would over-exercise. I would undereat and then overeat as a result because I couldn't sustain that. And I tried taking fat loss pills. I've done all of that stuff, trying to figure it out on my own before I actually went to school to become a registered dietitian, and then finally learned, okay, it has to be a lifestyle change. It has to be all about changing our habits and our behaviors. And the more I applied, the more that confidence grew. There's just like apply, grow, apply, grow, apply, grow. And you start to build momentum that way. And you only want to continue to just grow as a person. Like I am happy, but I don't think I've reached my peak yet. I really don't, because I know that we all have so much more within us, and we just have to take care of the fundamentals first. And I think honestly, I've just like scratched the surface now I'm finally that I'm committed to my workouts and eating healthy and just I get it now. It's like only the beginning. And that's really my goal is when I work with my clients is to get them to that point And then after that, I can let them transition and like explore the rest of the world and like let them go and be free birds and figure out how they can provide value to everyone around them.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's the most empowering thing that's the most empowering part of our job, right? Like it's like, I mean, and I've even noticed now, like, as we're starting to do more of like the mentorship stuff, it's like, I love like helping people in general. I love coaching people in general, but like coaching like nutrition clients and coaching like other coaches, like, it's just different, right? And I think at the end of the day, it's just like really helping people, like live your best life, like we like to say, like it's just such an empowering thing to do, especially like knowing I always tell people, I'm like, I used to like not help anybody and I was like the worst person. And now like all I want to do is like help people because like that's the most fulfilling thing in this world. Mm-hmm. Like people just want to be happy. And like, I mean, that truly like makes me happy doing that. Like holding the door open for somebody, like that makes me happy. Like when they don't say thank you, I mean, yeah, like I wish they said thank you, I guess.
Saying really though.
So 14 years old, right? That's kind of the age. So what happened when you were 14 years old?
It was more, I think it probably was a combination of the fact that I never got attention from boys ever. And I was like, probably always a feeling like I always had crush on people. I never thought they gave me attention. So I was probably started from that. Also, I did play sports. So I was actually relatively good, athletic. Like I was athletically good, but when it would come to tryouts and like running the mile, I never did well with that because I really believe my weight is what held me back. But when it came to shooting free throws and like skill drills and all that, I was really good. I played basketball, I did volleyball, I threw shot put and discus, all that stuff. And so I was always athletic and I was always really good. And I wanted to get on varsity as a freshman. And I felt like my weight needed to change for that. And so that's when I started changing my eating habits. But it's funny, I remember this so much. I remember this memory of my first thought was, okay, if I want to lose weight, I should not eat. And I went to tryouts. And when I tell you, I could not run, I had no energy. Like I couldn't I was like, it really hurt. Like, but I learned my lesson, right? So it's like, I did that and I learned and I realized, okay, this isn't working. So that's when I started to like, okay, now maybe I should just not get fast food when I'm done with basketball practice. Like maybe that should be the first step rather than just like not eating all day long. Like I remember having one orange that day and I was like dying and it was really challenging. But yeah, so it was a combination of like wanting attention from men, for boys at that time, because I was 14, and wanting to be better in my sport.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I tell people all the time, I'm like, I mean, when I was in high school, I was like a fool, right? Like, it's like what you don't know, you don't know. I mean, I remember like I worked at like Walgreens, you make like, I was making like $300 like every 2 weeks. And I would spend like $300 a month at the supplement store and I'd buy like every last supplement. Like, I mean, in high school, like they gave kids like a pro hormone. Like I took a pro hormone in high school. And then I would go, I'm over here like eating Taco Bell and all this. Like, so I got a football scholarship to college, and I needed to put on some weight, and my like bulking was me eating 5 chicken burritos every single day of that summer to like bulk. That led to just a fat, slow football player. That's it.
Oh, that's so funny. I mean, nobody really teaches you this stuff.
Nobody does. I know. I grew up on, like frozen meals and like canned stuff and like fast food. And I had 3 other little brothers and sisters, and like, like we didn't have a lot of money, and like it's like it makes sense. But yeah, that's why like a lot of people ask me now, they're like, what's like your philosophy like now that you're having a kid with like nutrition and all this? And I'm like, honestly, like I just want the kitchen to be like him or her like favorite room in the house. Like I just want, like, I want to like turn the music on. Like I want to make like cooking and like teaching that in a fun way something that's like a huge aspect of our life.
I love that. And it's so powerful. Side note, if you ever watch, what is it? Oh, now I forgot. Chop Junior? No, Master Chef Junior. These kids are like 6 years old and like killing it in the kitchen. I'm convinced that if everyone put their kids in the kitchen that young, they would all be chefs. Like, I really think that kids are so smart and we just have to put them there. And so your kid could be the next, Master Chef Junior.
Master Chef Junior. All right, I'll take that.
It's such a good show. They make me feel bad.
It's just, you run into it obviously all the time too, but I think that, that's like one of like the first steps a lot of the times. It's just like most people like don't like really know how to grocery shop or cook or like meal prep, or forget macros and all that. It's like they don't even know how to like.
They don't know the fundamentals. Yeah, and that's what bothers me the most, and that's why I do what I do as well, is because there's so much misinformation out there on the internet. There's so much overwhelming stuff. It's just constantly people are being bombarded by these messages that, to be honest, sometimes they're true and they might be based off science. Like when it comes to counting your macros, that stuff works. The question is, does it work for me? And do I even understand how to prepare food? Like, do I even understand what is a protein, what is a carbohydrate, and what's a fat, which people don't know, by the way. I really have learned that, like, through my counseling, I luckily have learned to kind of slow down and ask in between, make sure like I'm making sense. But in the beginning, when I first started counseling, I would just say, okay, incorporate a carb, a protein, and a healthy fat. And they're like, what exactly is a protein? With like, or everyone that thinks peanut butter is protein. Like,
yeah. Well, because they market it and advertise it now.
Right. Yeah. So, I just have to explain to them that yes, it has protein, but it's more like it counts as your health towards your fats and like stuff like that. But like if these messages are kind of out there and just giving these people all this information, it's like, how do you digest it? And that's really why, another reason why I do what I do is really to help people sift through that and learn how to do those things, like the fundamentals, like cooking in the kitchen. That's why I love the online space. Yeah. Because with the online space, I don't know about if what you're counseling is. Mine as video conferencing. So I literally could go, like I do this so often, and I have a 1-bedroom apartment, so I know it looks all pretty, but we're actually in my kitchen. So. Your lighting is much better than mine, so. This is the background. You should see the dirty dishes behind me. But like very often, like I'll just go to the cabinet, pull out something that I usually eat, or they have a question, or I can teach them how to read the nutrition facts label. I could show them if I wanted to whip up something, like I could show it to them. And that's why I love the virtual aspect of the counseling, because it's so much more practical with the way our world is today. Everyone's so busy, on the go. It's a really great thing that I can actually physically show them how to prepare food in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. Doing simple Zoom calls like this or whatever, it's just made life like so easy. And like, it's the same thing. Like, we could schedule a client call with somebody and maybe grocery shopping, something that's really challenging. Like, cool, like let's make that call a FaceTime and let's walk you through the grocery store. Mm-hmm. Like there's so many things that we can do with technology. It's like, it's made it a lot easier for people to learn. They just unfortunately have also experienced the templates and the calculators and blah, 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 blah. And like, so it's really hard for them to understand like where we're actually willing to go to help them succeed. Right. So, obviously that's one thing, like getting people on a phone call is sometimes the only way that we can actually explain the program. I feel like, but anyways, so diving in, kind of like going back a little bit into your transition, like, since you've made this change for yourself and kind of gone all in and committed to this lifestyle and all this, like, what are some of like the struggles that, like, obviously we all have struggles that pop up. You mentioned like consistency, right? Like that's what most people probably struggle with the most. But like, what are some of the like struggles that you feel like kind of maybe are reoccurring, or maybe we could even talk about clients. But I feel like there's like maybe a group of like 3 to 5 that like we see reoccurring all of the time. Can you kind of touch on some of those commonalities?
Absolutely. The first thing that comes to mind is other people influencing you and your choices. And so one thing I'm actually going to go, when I hop off this call, I'm going to go into my Facebook group, and because someone had asked the question, like, does anybody else get judged for eating healthy? And yeah, like, that people don't talk about that. Like, why is it okay for people to comment on my salad, but I can't comment on your cheeseburger and french fries?
Yeah.
Because it's like food shaming, but like you're not doing the same thing to me. And so that's something that I think happens a lot. And I'm very, what I'm going to say in the group and what I'm saying right now is that when you love your decision, nobody else needs to love it, or whatever that quote is, right? Like, when you know what you're doing aligns with your values, you could care less what the person next to you thinks about your salad or what your food is, because you know that it's good for you. But it definitely takes time to get there. Like, I can say that confidently now, but I remember being around my family, who I love to death, but they're Greek and Italian, and the portions, when I tell you, are ginormous all the time, and the food is amazing. And they don't understand when you're like, no, I'm good. Like, my button's broken, so like, I think I should stop now. Like, they don't understand that. And so then when I started changing my eating habits, I did get judged. Like, I definitely did. And I had to be okay with that. And there would be times where sometimes I would eat because I just felt I wanted to be normal. I wanted to feel like I was a part of them. And, you might feel slightly like the outsider. Like, if everyone's getting pizza and you decide you want to get a salad with grilled chicken from the same pizzeria, people are going to look at you, and you have to be able to be okay with that. You have to be comfortable with that. Thinking about going out and drinking, sometimes your friends, like, that's what you used to do together. But now it's like, I'll still do those things, and I'm not saying that they can't be a part of your lifestyle, but you have to then be okay with not having 4 or 5 drinks in a night, being able to stick to what you told yourself, you committed to yourself that you were going to do. Or maybe you start to explore, like, doing things with friends, more like physical, more activities. Like, now I'll do that. I'll go out with my girlfriends for drinks, but I'll also ask my girlfriends if they want to take a yoga class or a Zumba class, or go for a hike or something like that. You have to start to be open to, changing your lifestyle in a certain way. And that can be a little bit threatening to people. And so I think that's where the consistency becomes a problem, because it's really easy to eat healthy on your own.
Yeah.
Like, when it's up to you, right? But if you have to think about what your husband wants, or what your boyfriend wants, or your girlfriend, or what restaurant are you going to go to? Like, those are the things that can make it challenging, for sure. Kind of when it's not always in your control, but it's kind of up to you. And you might not have that clarity yet. You might not have that confidence yet. And so that's where people can kind of fall off track, which is why I encourage coaching so much. It's having somebody to give you some sort of a game plan, to talk that through, to feel like you have someone on your side. Because that's how I feel even with mentoring, with being, in the space that I am as a business coach. Not a lot of people understand it. So it's nice to have somebody to talk to that gets it. That's also a registered dietitian. Like, Toni Stefan is my coach, and he's doing everything I want to be doing as a registered dietitian. So it makes sense to kind of talk with him. So if you're working on your nutrition, it makes sense to talk with a dietitian, right? Or a nutrition expert. Or if you're working on your fitness, it makes sense to sign up with a trainer. Like, I think sometimes people fall off track because they don't have that person, the right people, kind of guiding them and supporting them. So that's one.
No, I mean, you touched on a lot of great points there, and I completely agree. And it's so I always talk about, and I mean, you can attest to this too, because obviously you're working with Toni, who's phenomenal. But we got really lucky, right? Like, the first, or I don't know, maybe you have you had another mentor? Or is this the first one?
I did work with someone before, and she was great. But honestly, when I started working with Toni, I realized I didn't really need her anymore. So now I just work with Toni.
Got it. Okay. So yeah. So I mean, similar, right? I talk about it all the time. I'm like, I'm really lucky that I fell into like such a great mentorship from the very beginning. Like, yeah. I didn't have a bad experience. Like, and because like, there's a lot of coaches out there, right? There's a lot of mentors out there. There's a lot of masterminds out there, etc. And like, there's tons of good ones, but there's also bad ones.
That's very true too. That's a very good point too. It's true. Like, not all trainers are great trainers. Well, fortunately, not all dietitians are great dietitians. I've had people express really terrible things to me, and I apologize for the profession sometimes, because it's just not fair. Like, so. Yeah, it's true. That's true. I guess it depends on who the person is. But I think anybody you would know if it's like working with a therapist. Everything I've went through, I've seen a couple. And, like, at one point I recognized that the therapist that was actually the family therapist, it no longer made sense for me to see her, because it just felt like there was a lot of bias because she worked with our whole family. And so at first I thought that was a good thing, but then I recognized, I think she's just playing all sides. And that's, I could be wrong. Like, I don't know. But it didn't work for me. So then I went to someone else.
To like realize that you needed to make that change there? I mean, it brings up a great point, right? Like, I think that a lot of people, like, they look to a certain person for advice, like maybe it's their parents or maybe it's a relationship or whatever. And sometimes we're like almost like blinded by that relationship, and it enables us disables us from making like our own decision.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you, like, one thing I really do practice now is really journaling and sitting with myself. And that's something I've always done. So I think if you're really, truly paying attention and listening to your gut, like, the problem is that we just block it out.
Yeah.
We saturate our lives with being busy, with just doing things that don't really serve us. And then we have that gut feeling, but we ignore it. Right? Or we're so distracted that we're not paying attention. When you start to kind of slow down and really ask yourself, like, what do I need? The answers come to you, and it's very obvious. And I think one thing that I've worked on is, because I've always tried to help other people and kind of be the glue that holds everyone together, I always felt bad disappointing people. And so a lot of times I would recognize that the only reason why I kept going to see her was because I didn't want to disappoint her. Honestly, that's why I was in relationships with men that, like, I didn't want to be in them, but I didn't want to disappoint them. Like, if you keep trying to please other people, you're never going to be happy. And which is why it goes back to everything I do, what I do, which is following things that make you happy. Like, just because Zumba is like the cool thing to do, if you hate Zumba, which is crazy because you can't not be happy doing Zumba, but that's a personal opinion. But like, if you're not happy doing it, like, don't do it just to please your friend who wants to do it with you. Like, when you follow the things that make you feel good, the answers come to you.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, it's just so cool to see. Like, I mean, think about, like, let's rewind back like 2 years from now. Like, I mean, let's put Toni and Toni right next to each other. I mean, if the old Toni could just sit here and like look at the new Toni right now, like, there's just like, it's like the emoji with mind blown, right?
Like a totally different person.
But it's transformation, right? I mean, like, look, like I when I left high school and when I came back from college that first semester, and then now to like now, I mean, you can go and ask any of my people in my hometown, like, they're like, yeah, he like completely did a 180, like completely changed his whole entire life around. And it happened like in an instant decision. And of course, like, there were setbacks and stuff, but like, I decided, I was like, I'm not going to let like my past define me, and like, I'm going to move forward. And like, I got a second opportunity at life, and like, I'm going to go all in on that. And that's been the driving force for like 10 years. But I love seeing that transformation in people, because it's like, it just proves that like, I mean, we're not special, right? Like, anybody can do this. It's just like, sometimes you just need somebody to actually believe in you. Like Jason, I was in the field for 8 years and I kept making excuses, and he like called me out on all my BS, and like finally like believed in me, or I had somebody that believed in me, and I did it. I made the jump. And obviously, like, Toni, for you, I mean,
the same thing. He really was that missing piece, like, that I really needed. I needed someone to give me that tough love, but also truly believe in me. I know he truly believes in me, and now I believe in myself too, which is, after that, you're unstoppable. Like, it's exciting
in the world.
Yeah,
really. I think a lot of people maybe don't get that because they're scared to make an investment in themselves, right? Like,
unknown. We always fear the unknown. Yeah. We always fear the unknown. Yeah. And we're so comfortable with being smaller than ourselves, which is not how we're supposed to be in this world. But there's comfort in that, so people don't want to leave that.
For me, it's really interesting. Like, I actually get a lot more anxiety and like nervousness and like scared about when I start to feel comfortable. Like, when I feel comfortable, I like start freaking out. I'm like, I don't want to be comfortable. Like, I want to keep moving forward. And so it's a very interesting dynamic, because I feel like a lot of people get entrapped in being comfortable. Like, I feel like if I would have made the jump 8 months ago or 10 months ago or whatever, like, I would have ended up staying comfortable because, right, I found out like my wife was pregnant. So like, there's no way I would have done that. I would have started a business after that, you know? So I could have got trapped. I mean, it's just like timing, right? It's like, but it's, you know, we don't have unlimited time, right? And like, I think once you can actually realize that, like, it will at least nudge you a little bit to maybe take action.
Yeah, I mean, I think about how I like whoever's listening to this, they really just think about how quickly this year went by and how every single year they just go by faster.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I was just celebrating, like, I can't believe I have a Christmas tree in my living room right now. Like, that was what, like, how is it a year already since the last time we celebrated Christmas?
I know.
Like, the world, everything's just going to keep going until you take action. And yeah, I agree with you. Like, for me, the comfortableness for me it doesn't cause so much anxiety, but I just am like what is life? Like, what is, I just feel like life is supposed to be us striving to be better. Otherwise it's just, we're just kind of here.
Yeah.
You know? And I think we all have so much potential in us to give to others. And that's why I think we're put on this earth, is to, whatever that is. It could be, I was just on Claire Chewing's podcast.
Yeah, we just had her on here like.
Did you?
2 days ago. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Yeah, and I was talking, I don't know how this analogy came up, but I'm going to use it. Like, if you like making mittens, make mittens, and you keep people's hands warm, and you have purpose. You're keeping people warm. Like, but like, seriously, if like that's your thing, and like you like to knit, like knit. And maybe it feels good in your soul, and you believe that it's helping others, do those things. And I know it sounds silly, but like, we all are meant to be doing something, and you know what that is. It's that thing that when you do it, you aren't thinking about anything else. And when you're finished doing it, you have energy. You're not feeling exhausted and drained. I think the second you get comfortable, you kind of just are going through the motions. And the end of the day, you don't, there's no vivacious vitality. There's nothing, you don't feel good. You're not excited to wake up each day. Like, that's when you know you got to be doing something different, like pushing harder.
Yeah, I completely agree. I love the way you put that. So talk to me. I know we're obviously kind of diving into a lot of this like mindset-y stuff, but like, talk to me like a little bit about, I mean, you know, we hear it all the time. There's like a lot of coaches in the space. Like, there's a lot of like macros and things like that. And like, as you and I both know, like, obviously nutrition coaching is so much more than just that. Like, that's why we kind of put the tagline like nutrition and lifestyle coaching. But like, maybe talk to me a little bit about like, besides just nutrition, like when clients first come to you, what are like some of the things that like it could be sleep, it could be like digestive, like whatever it may be, but like, what are some of the like what we like to call like the big rocks that people need to make sure they're putting in place on a consistent basis?
Okay, well, it's kind of hard to answer considering everyone's so individualized. So one thing I definitely specialize in is I don't do macro coaching. I don't do intuitive eating. I don't do, and I know a lot of people will tell you to kind of niche down. But I just listen and help people. That's all I do. Like, I really believe that, you know, we are all an individual. We have different lifestyles, we have different jobs, we have different likes, different preferences. And because, like I said earlier, I've literally worked in every single aspect of nutrition out there. Like, I know a lot about nutrition, and I also know how to make it work for you. So the one thing I encourage people to do that anybody needs to do is, the first thing they need to do is bring awareness. And we can't change anything unless we know what is necessary. What do we need to change? We need to figure out what's going on and why you're doing it and what the goal is, and how do we make those align. I will say, like, one thing that I do a lot of my clients, it starts to kind of unravel as we talk with, is it kind of opens up. So I work with a lot of working busy moms, and they tend to find themselves eating out of emotion, whether it's stress, anxiety. Maybe they're not, they're fighting with their spouse, stuff at work isn't good, the kids aren't good, and they're using food as an outlet to kind of cope. So that's one thing, that's like a fundamental thing that we need to address, because if we don't address that, then me telling you to eat your vegetables with your protein at dinner doesn't make any difference. So we really need to figure out, like, what is it that you're feeling? Why are you feeling that way? And how do we handle the situation better? And so that answer is going to be different for everyone. But that's definitely something that I usually find comes up in my sessions.
Got it. So do you find, I mean, is there a lot of that, like, I mean, a lot of clients that you're dealing with, like, that's one of like the biggest red flags that you see? I mean, that's pretty common for clients you work with.
Yeah, they're usually really stressed, really anxious, or really just unhappy, and they're using food as a way to kind of cope with that.
So when you start digging into that conversation, because obviously it's more than just the food, I mean, like, is there commonalities in like what the why behind the reasoning is? Or like, is it going back to it's their kids, or it's their husband, or it's some external factor, their environment? Like,
Yeah, it's usually I would say the commonality between all of it is because they're so focused on everybody else during the day, which is why everything kind of ties in. It's why I believe in self-care, and my mission is to help people take care of them, is because they're constantly taking care of others all day. When it comes to like their alone time, they're expressing it's like that, like the food is that way to kind of like make them feel better in the moment, make them feel like they matter, it's really different for everyone, but it is definitely something that they use as a way to feel better. And that's where the problem is because like we're human, right? So we're all going to eat out of emotion. Like that's normal, right? We're going to feel stressed, we're going to feel sad, we're going to feel angry, and we might turn to food as a result. The problem is that if you have a goal and you're not hitting that goal, then we have to address it, one. And then two, obviously there's a bigger thing going on, right? So if you're always stressed and anxious, who cares what your weight is? Right? So that's what's more important than anything is like, I could get you to this weight, but if you're still going to be stressed and anxious when you get there, what's the point? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that, like, I mean, it's almost like if that's the only thing you're focused on is, weighing yourself every single day and your mind's dead set on some number. I mean, you're just setting yourself up for failure anyways. But I think it's so true, right? Like, we're all human beings, like whether you're a mom or whatever it may be, like if you're just giving, I mean, even as a coach, right? Like when we work with clients, like we give. And like we always talk about, it's like we have to be right with ourselves so that we can actually deliver for other clients. But we're still human beings. Like the more we give, like it is, at sometimes exhausting. And like we really have to remind ourselves to refuel and take care of ourselves as well,
Absolutely. And what I will say, I don't know if other nutrition coaches watch this, or just honestly any professional, like anyone that's working, and most people who are watching this probably work and probably have a family, and but mostly if it's related to work. I will say that when I am more focused on my nutrition and my fitness goals, my days are so much better, but my business really isn't, I make more money. Like I'm going to be blunt and just say it out there. Like I notice that on the weeks when I'm kind of like dilly-dallying in my nutrition and kind of sticking to my workouts, I barely get calls that week. Like, because I'm not focused, I'm not energized, I'm not feeling good, I'm not like really in it, When you're focused and you're taking care of you, that's where your income actually will increase as a result. And I see it firsthand, and there's studies about it, that those who take care of themselves usually make more money. So if you want to make money, start taking care of yourself.
Well, and I mean, one thing that, like, I don't know if Tony's done with you, but one thing that we did, like from Garrett White, was we kind of broke down those four pillars of body, being, balance, and business. And I share that with clients all the time. Like, especially clients I've worked with for a while, and like we've really kind of evolved their nutrition education. I love to help them evolve in those other pillars as well, right? Like, because I mean, it's all of these things affect each other, right? Like, you know, you can't just sit here and focus on one thing, because those other pillars will get affected. They'll fall.
Yeah.
So I think just knowing why is it, like, look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself the question, like, why is it that I do what I do? Like, why is it that I think what I think? Like, you know, I have this like one life that I've been handed, and like, what am I doing with it? You know, like, am I sitting here like, I don't know, like, let's just say wasting it, or am I actually making sure that like I'm living out my capabilities and trying to reach my God-given potential in life? So I think once you find it, whatever it is, whether you, I don't know, almost lose your whole life and, you know, by going to jail like me, or something happens like you, or whatever, like, I'm a big believer that like sometimes we need something to happen in our life for us to like really wake up and realize like the opportunity that we have at hand.
My favorite quote, well, I have a lot of favorite quotes. I'm a big quote person, but I haven't blogged about this yet, and I definitely am going to. It's turn your pain into purpose.
I love
That's
that.
Everybody, if you do that, like, we all have our hero's journey. We all have something we've been through, you know. And I think sometimes too, and this is what my problem was, I didn't think my problem was like big enough. Like, I didn't think it was like a big a deal. Like, I'd never been to jail. Like, you know, like, I just was like, I'm just like insecure, like whatever. But it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You can't compare your problems to other people's problems. We all have stuff that we have to go through. Some of us are born in poverty. Some of us were born being fortunate. We still have struggles.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you still, and keeping it in isn't going to help anyone. So take that pain and turn it into purpose, because somebody's going to benefit from it.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, I tell people all the time, it's like, we all have a story to tell. Like, tell it. Like, it'll help somebody. Like, a lot of people, you know, they're like, they might say, hey, like, my story is not that cool or important or whatever. It's like, I promise you, like, your story can help somebody. Like, somebody in this world can benefit from hearing your story.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I'm a big believer in telling it. I was scared to tell it for like 8 years. And so, you know, now I have people reach out to me all the time. They're like, thank you so much for being so transparent and telling your story. And like, I was thinking about this and I listened to this and like, it helped me through that. You know, it's just like, you hear so much of that and you're like, wow, that was very selfish that I was scared to not tell the story. Like, I could have probably helped people for the last 8 years.
Yeah. Definitely.
So, but you gotta be ready, right? Like, you gotta be.
Yeah. I mean, because some things we go through are a little bit traumatic, and so we have to. When you talk about it, it might open up some old wounds when you're not ready. One thing too, I think as a business owner, and like, it doesn't. If I were to talk about this when I was going through it, I don't think people would really trust me and be able to, you know, because I didn't figure it out yet. So I kind of feel like a fraud if I were talking about like how I can help you.
Yeah.
But I didn't overcome it yet. Now that I'm past it and I've learned how to overcome it, it feels a little bit better to be able to talk about it. But when you're in that state, it's a little bit challenging to talk about.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, I mean, you have to like, you got to go through it, right? So that you actually have a story to tell.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's hard to, I don't know. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Be open and honest when you have like a bad day, but like, if there's some stuff that you haven't really quite figured out yet, you can't pretend like you can help someone through it until you've really been through it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, so look, I want to definitely respect your time here. I know you have to go pop on your Facebook group, but thank you so much for taking the time tonight and coming on. We'll have to bring you on at some point and dive into maybe a more like specific subject. But really today I just wanted to dive in on that. And I think that you know, that brings a lot of value to people's life, because I think a lot of people are struggling with, you know, just even finding like the why behind what they're doing, you know. And I think that like daily journaling, like action items, guys, like if you're not doing daily journaling, like go try it, start it. Like when you first do it, you might not like it or you might not be consistent, but like just at least attempt it and see if it's for you. And that way you can at least say you tried. So, Toni, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I know it's late, but
after my Facebook group, I have a client call because I have people I counsel. They're in Texas or they're not, they're from a little bit from all over. So I usually get them up late.
Wow. Well, kudos to you. That is a late night, girl. Well, hey, where can everybody find you at? And that way they can go check you out, connect.
Yeah, so I have a podcast. It's called Tips with Toni. I have my Instagram page, Tips with Toni. That's Tips with Toni, Toni with an I. I'm on Facebook, Tips with Toni. I mean, if you just Google Tips with Toni, I kind of pop up. I've been doing this blog for like 10 years, so it's finally awesome that now it's actually a business, but I've been doing it for a really long time. So there's tons of content. If you go to my website, www.tipswithtoni.com, you can definitely learn more there as well.
That's awesome. Well, cool. Well, thank you so much again. And yeah, we'll have to connect. I'm going to turn us off here and then we will finish out.